welcome, guys. This is another episode of The Takeoff. I'm your host, Mick Donaghy, and welcome today. This is our revamped episode. We're currently going live from our new studio. I'm super excited to be here today. Over the course of the next few weeks, we will be doing a number of exciting episodes, from solo episodes with myself through to live episodes with in-house guests and virtual episodes of individuals from the construction industry across Australia, New Zealand, and globally. Super excited to be with you today. Today we're going to talk about a topic I am extremely passionate about, something that I get questions about all the time, and that is, why do contractors get paid more than consultancies? So this has been a bone of contention for the industry for a number of years. Obviously, I've worked across a number of different markets, from Ireland, UK, New Zealand, Australia, the US, and it's the same no matter where you go in the world. It just so happens to be that contractors pay significantly more than consultancies, usually client side, usually developers as well, but just depends on company to company. So we've got 5 points we're going to talk about today. The episode should be around 20 minutes long. If I ramble, which I tend to do, could be 30 minutes. But the first point I'm going to make today is that one of the main reasons why construction companies, why main contractors pay more than consultancies is intense demand. The demand right now for experienced people in the construction world is phenomenal. And when I talk about experience, I'm talking about on the boots, or boots on the ground. I'm talking about those who are experienced working on major infrastructure projects, healthcare projects, education, universities, those who have experience in construction, and not specifically those who are in that sort of advisory capacity or that strategic consulting capacity, those who know how to get things done, those who know how to manage people, those who know how to actually build, what it takes to put together a construction project. Those individuals are highly, highly in demand the world over. And whether that's a symptom of COVID or whether that's a symptom of the industry, one of my takes is, realistically, construction doesn't get talked about enough. When we're talking to young individuals, when we're talking to teenagers, when we're talking about the school leavers out there, what are the industries that they feel most suited to them? And right now, it's technology, it's media, it's IT, it's the industry where they're not getting dirty and out in the rain and soaked and miserable all day. But we don't do a good enough job for selling construction, talking about what they can achieve, what they can do, what they can put together and build. It's construction is an unbelievably exciting industry. It is a career that can take you to every corner of the world. And you'll always have a job. So super, super exciting industry, but we don't do a good enough job in selling it. So if you look at that over probably a period of 10, 15 years, 20 years maybe, plus COVID over the last 2 years, we've had lockdowns, we've had people not being able to come in and out of the country. It's been a hotbed and a swimming pool of confusion and noise, and it's all come together. And that's one big reason why I believe construction contractors pay more than consultancies. But it's been happening for a number of years, and not just over the last few. So the next few points that I'll talk about will be will sort of hit the nose on the head as to why consultancies pay that little bit less. The next point I'm going to make is higher risk. So risk is a big thing within construction. So if we're talking about building a $100 million project, whether you're a developer, whether you're an owner of the project, whether you're a construction contractor or a subcontractor, nobody wants to take on the risk. Why is that? And it's obvious why it is, because the likelihood is that there's a big problem in construction. There's collaboration tends to be difficult. From the design phase through to delivery phase, there's challenges along the way. There's challenges with councils, consultants getting things approved. So many challenges along the way, but no one wants to take the risk. The client doesn't want to take the risk if the project doesn't get delivered, or if the building sits half built for 5 years, and there's a hole in someone's pocket of 10 million. Someone is essentially required to be blamed, and so no one wants to take that risk. But what happens is contractors tend to take that risk on because they need the revenue. They need the revenue of that particular project. They need the revenue of that $20 million build to keep 50 people employed. And so that has massive challenges, and clients push on that risk, consultants push on that risk, and they know that contractors the backs are against the wall from the initial phase of the construction project, from design right through to handover. So that risk is intense, and we see that the demand, the pressure that puts on to people who work for construction companies, it's huge. And we see the mental health crisis that basically is absorbing the industry in New Zealand, in Australia, in the UK, Ireland, in the US. People who are out there working in construction are having serious mental health issues. I heard a few years ago of people climbing the top of cranes, just because they're so depressed in their day to day, and experiencing lots of difficulties throughout their career, their personal life, their professional life. And let's face it, it's all one thing. It's just life itself. So there's massive risk, and that risk will not just go on to contractors, but it goes on to the people within those construction companies who are building day to day. The third point I'm going to make: programs are extremely tight. So construction companies will go in and win a project based on essentially how quickly they're going to get it done and the price they're going to charge for making it happen. So we're now noticing, and obviously it's not just over the last couple of years, but even more so in a challenging environment, and certainly in a challenging economical environment, we're seeing that construction companies are tendering for projects with super unrealistic programs. And so what that does is that puts everyone under pressure from the very start. So if you think about it, the risk is pushed onto the contractor. In terms of the programs are so tight because they need to win the projects to pay the people that work for them, or they're making massive redundancies. You start to see why contractors, will pay more or be forced to pay more. I don't think that they would want to pay more, but certainly they're forced to pay more. And so what we'll see is that because the programs are so tight, there's such a short period of time for delivery of the projects to basically be established. And so what that means is that, if you're a project manager, or if you're a contract administrator, a quantity surveyor, or cost manager, or whatever it might be, you've got a very, very short window where the construction and the construction delivery phase is there to basically progress as such. So what we'll see is that it's very normal. It's normal for contractors to be doing 12-hour days, to be waking up first thing in the morning, and they're getting the subcontractors on the phone. From can't get on the site, or can't get access to something from 6 o'clock in the morning. When's the last email coming through at night? It could be, 11 o'clock at night. I remember speaking to a general manager one day of a construction company, and they told me that they were getting around 300 emails per day. So to put that into perspective, I probably get about 20 a day. So 300 emails per day. I mean, I don't know, it's absolutely insane. So you start to see how this, you're looking at pressure, highly pressurized, working, long hours, a lot of risk involved. And then we start to go, okay, but what's it like on the consultancy side? So the consultancy side, now, contractors would would make you believe that it's all sunshine and rainbows. It's, everyone's sitting on a sun lounger in the office and, drinking cocktails and, watching the tennis. It's not that. It's certainly there's a lot that goes into strategic project advisory, from the bidding stage, the managing of various different stakeholders and progressing things from design through to delivery. It's a stressful job itself, but is it like being on site? Is it like being out in the rain and out in the bad weather? Whether it's like Auckland has been over the last few months, it's been flooding. Or if it's like Australia where it could be 40 degrees on site. So there's a lot. But if you look at that and go, well, most of the time you're based in an office. Most of the time you're doing meetings and interfacing with people. Is it that? Probably not. So you begin to see the picture that's being painted here. Number 3, or number 4, should I say, dangerous work. So dangerous work, not every construction project is dangerous, but certainly there are complexities to a construction project. So what you'll notice in construction, every year, no matter what country you're in, you'll hear about a death on a construction site. Now, things have got a lot better over the last few years, or certainly over the last 10. There was a time where health and safety really didn't exist. In Australia, health and safety is paramount to everything. When I worked in the UK and Ireland, health and safety was certainly the number one objective. When I arrived in New Zealand, though, health and safety wasn't really something that people considered, and that's something that is definitely got a lot better, certainly over the last 5 years. But it's something that we have to consider. If you're working for a construction company, and whether it's a major infrastructure project or if it's a mining and resourcing project, certainly there are a lot of complexities to working in that type of environment. I've heard of guys working out on mines where they've maybe struck an electricity cable and ended up electrocuting themselves and dying. I've heard of people getting stuck in shafts and not being able to get out, or falling off scaffolding or whatever it might be. There's so many challenges to actually working on site, and it's high risk no matter what way we look at it. With so much physical activity, with potentially hundreds to thousands of men and women on site, it's you're in an environment where if everyone isn't on the same page and singing off the same hymn sheet, things could go wrong. So again, this is another reason why contractors do get paid that little bit more than consultancies. Now, how much do they get paid in comparison? And it's actually quite funny to bring this up, because if you think of how many hours that you would work as a contractor compared to how many hours you would work as a consultant, you might look at a consultant, say, between average 40 to 45, contractor, depending on what you're doing, but certainly most likely 50 to 55, could be even more than that. I remember I had contractors who worked I've heard of contractors who worked before, it could be 70 hours, which is obscene. So when you look at it as an hourly rate, it might not be that much different, but on a yearly package, it certainly can look that way. It can look from anything from 20% to 30, 40%. It probably has that banding, than that wide of a banding as well. So it's certainly there's certainly a lot of interesting reasons as to why contractors are paid more, but certainly those hours that you're working, the demand that's on them, the pressure, the high risk environment, they certainly all add up. Another thing, and probably the last thing, is certainly talent shortages, and that's something that we spoke about in point 1 briefly. But talent is so hard to find, and what you'll notice is that a lot of consulting, a lot of client side, a lot of those individuals sitting in senior level roles in those types of environment tend to come from a construction background. You'll see guys who maybe work for the likes of Bechtel or Lend-Lease or Fletcher or Downer or whoever it might be. They typically will transition into consultant role. And why is that? And Usually they'll tell you, "Oh, I want an easier life." And, that I can see the reasons for that. They maybe have done 20, 25 years based on site, waking up at 6 a.m. every day, sacrificing time with their family, working weekends. That's another big thing that I haven't talked about is there's weekend work. You could be doing 6 days a week. I think Roberts Co in Sydney was, heralded as being, completely, off the wall, great because they're not programming weekend work. And you think, I mean, surely that should just be common sense. But it's unique in the industry, and consultants don't have to work weekends, and unless you own your own consulting firm. But if you're working for possibly like a Faithful and Gold or a Jacobs or a JLL, by and large you're probably working Monday to Friday. So the demand, these guys who are transitioning from contracting backgrounds to consulting backgrounds are looking for that easier life. They're also possibly looking to transition for a bit of a change. And when you're interfacing, when you're boots on the ground, when you're working in a high risk environment, things do get old. You built one hospital, you've probably built them all. Similar with data centers, semiconductor factories, or prisons. I mean, pretty much they're all the same. And that's the same for roading bridges. Unless you're working on some stuff for the Olympic Games, like the Beijing Nest Stadium. If you've ever seen that one, it's pretty unique. But you know what I mean. You've done one, you've done them all, and what you find is that senior level guys will go into those more strategic, value added positions where they're maybe able to offer value to the client and to the contractor, and build some synergies and try and allow for more collaboration. But that's one thing that, contractors are now moving into consultancies because they're looking at it and going, well, Monday to Friday, easier life, can pick the kids up from school once a week, might get home at 4 o'clock on a Friday, not having to work the weekends. So those guys could count for maybe 10, 15% of the industry are leaving contractors. So there is 10 to 15% of the industry that are required, that there's a talent shortage within that space. If we talk about the construction not being a sexy industry anymore because it's because there's no one talking about it. When I was in school, not one person came to me and said, Mick, you could have a career in construction. I thought construction was just, I don't mean just because certainly it's a noble profession, but my old man was a plumber, and he always told me never become a plumber. And I always remembered, during my time, working with him in summers and, school holidays and all of that sort of stuff, I definitely didn't want to become a plumber because it was far too hard. But no one came to me and said, you've got good grades, Mick, you've got a bit of ambition, you could become a project manager, and, you could earn, and let's face it, 300,000 a year, possibly 400,000 a year, which is incredible money. You look at that and think about it, like, that's over $250,000. Like, that's absolutely bonkers. But this is true. I see people from my hometown in Ireland now making easily over $300,000 to $400,000 a year, and no one came to me and said, hey, you could do that. And that was 2010, so 13, 14 years ago. And is there anyone out there doing that now? And I don't know. I don't think so. And this is the reason why I'm wanting to bring the podcast in a visual aspect, to start getting the word out there. Construction is awesome. Construction can lead you to significant financial freedom, have incredible advantages. You're actually building stuff that's there forever in most cases. And it changes people's lives, and most part for the better. If you're building a hospital, you're essentially, the end users are being saved or cured or assisted along the way. Whether you're building aged care facilities, retirement facilities, that's the end of life people have is more comfortable. There's let's face it, construction is what makes the world tick. It's not purely IT, it's not purely tech anymore, but it's construction, what we use day in, day out. So it's an incredible career, but no one talks about it enough. No one's out there really championing it enough. So this is the reason that there continues to be a talent shortage. We don't see enough engineers. We don't see enough quantity surveyors. We don't see enough estimators or construction managers. They're not coming into the industry anymore. They're moving out. They're doing things, with their mobile phone. They're into crypto. They're into NFTs or whatever it is next week. AI. Who knows? But construction will continue to be a requirement. There will be transitioning. There will be innovation in the industry. We're now seeing one of the biggest, sectors in the market is data centers, is semiconductor factories, because you see Samsung, Google, and Meta, and Facebook, or same thing. They're all in a basically cold war to build chips for everyone's phones, and so that means that there's construction factories need to be built all over the world, and there's a huge demand, whether it's defense. The US, Australia's crazy for defense. Australia spends like 3% of their GDP on defense. So I'm not too sure what the US is, but you think about this, there's constant demand for construction, and there's less and less people coming into the industry. So talent shortages is, again, another massive component to why contractors get paid more than consultancy. So guys, this is the end of the show. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope I haven't rambled too much. This is the first episode of me doing something like this. So hope you've enjoyed it. I hope I haven't went on too much. But if you're out there and you're in the industry and you're listening to this and you felt it's been useful, please like and share it, because it will help more. The more people see this, the more the industry becomes aware that there's people out there sharing content about construction. The more people will actually possibly want to start a conversation, the more guests that I can get into the studio. The more people talk about it, the better. And that's for everyone. So we need construction to continue to develop, continue to inspire, to continue to innovate. And this is what we're here to do. So hope you enjoyed this episode of The Takeoff, and I'll be here with you next week. Cheers.